Hey everybody, how is it going? Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to do a little bit of an update on CleanSpark. I haven't done a video on CleanSpark in about a month, give or take, and they just came out with their earnings, so I want to go over their earnings, but I also want to get into the price of Bitcoin and also some of the other Bitcoin miners as well. Looks like the sentiment has changed a little bit with some of these Bitcoin miners. They've been in a heavy downtrend, but it looks like that is starting to turn around the other way. So when I get into their charts, I just want to let you know if I think this turnaround is going to be sustainable to the upside, or do we have another leg down coming. But let's get into this article right here that goes over the highlights of CleanSpark's earnings. It says CleanSpark stock jumps 8% as Q1 crypto holdings surge, and also they had robust operating leverage. So everything sounds good on the surface. It says, meanwhile, given our success with Bitcoin mining, CleanSpark is considering strategic alternatives for our legacy energy business, said their CEO, Zach Bradford. So that was kind of a shock to me. I kind of like the fact that CleanSpark was a little bit diversified in their business. It kind of made them stand out a little bit more to me. But, you know, if they want to get out of that and put those proceeds into their Bitcoin mining operation, obviously they know their business better than I do, or at least I hope they do. But, you know, even though I kind of wish that they were staying a little diversified, not that big of a deal. But it also says their Q1 digital currency held on its balance sheet was 30.2 million, up from 23.6 million in Q4 of 2021. So a lot more Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And it says their Q1 crypto mining net revenue of 37 million substantially rose from just 733K in the same period, a year ago period last year. So, and it says their Q1 energy hardware, software, and services revenue was 3.97 million, up from 1.12 million in the year ago quarter. And total revenues were 41 million compared with 43 million consensus, but it was up from 2.25 million in Q1 of 2021. So things are definitely still on the up and up. And their Q1 adjusted EBITDA of 24 million jumped from a loss of 2.74 million last year. And this equaled CleanSpark's EPS came in at 35 cents versus 31 consensus. So they did beat on that metric right there. But I think all in all, the big news was Bitcoin deciding they're considering strategic alternatives for that legacy energy business. So I think that might have been most of the reason why Bitcoin was up so much after these earnings. But let's get into the next one. And getting into that next article, they talk just a little bit more about the plan to sell their legacy energy business. And if we scroll down, we can see what they're saying. First off, they said the stock was recently up nearly 15%, far outpacing today's gain for the rest of the crypto mining industry. So obviously the market likes that news that they are selling that legacy business. And the BTIG analyst Gregory Lewis says the plan has the potential to flip the script and drive incremental growth. And of course, incremental growth is a buzzword that Wall Street definitely likes. But it says the company has a current hash rate of 2.1 exahash per second and another roughly 1.9 exahash on order, with a hoped for year-end hash rate of 4.0. So definitely growing this business very quickly. But he figures CleanSpark will need about 40 million in capex to hit that number, and that's where that sale comes in. But it says, speaking on its earnings call, CleanSpark management said that it prefers to raise the capital by issuing rigged-back debt, and the company is in active talk with lenders, so lending against their Bitcoin mining rigs. And it says other options includes monetizing some of the company's Bitcoin holding, which doesn't necessarily mean just sales, but it might include yield strategies as well. So it definitely looks like management is acting in the best interest of the shareholders here by not diluting us to raise some of that capital. They're trying to look at every option available. And the analyst for BTIG, Lewis, maintained his buy rating and a 12-month price target of $30 on CleanSpark shares, which is triple the current levels. All right, well, I'm going to get into the price of Bitcoin before I get into the chart of CleanSpark and some of the other Bitcoin miners, because I think there's been a pretty significant technical event that has happened with Bitcoin. In my last video, Bitcoin was rolling over and it was starting to make this bearish flag formation, and these almost always result in a break to the downside. I mean, here was one right here. Let me back it up. Here was one right here. You can find these things in charts all over the place. They almost always result into a break to the downside, but it looked like it was more of a bear trap because we got a massive break to the upside and has been just melting up ever since. Now, the significant thing about this move right here is it is above this little peak right here. So that tells us from a technical point of view that it has a higher possibility of taking out this peak rather than taking off this trough next. Now, of course, technical analysis is, it's more of an art than a science. But normally when you go through charts and you see this type of formation, it usually ends up going higher later before it takes out that previous trough. So I think it looks like the sellers have finally exhausted themselves in Bitcoin, and it could potentially be starting that next wave up. But if we look at some of the other ones, we take a look at Ethereum. You can see Ethereum is also making the same similar pattern, had a little bit of a breakdown into the low 2000s, and now we have a break back above 3000. If we can get above this peak right here, I think it's going to be in the same boat as Bitcoin. And looking at some of the other ones, jump over to Solana. You can see Solana is still hanging out near the lows. Now, I've heard a lot of good things about Solana. I am by no means a crypto expert, but I've heard a lot of great things about Solana in particular. It kind of surprises me that everybody was so enthusiastic when it was up over 200, and now that it's down to 107, 109, give or take, I'm not seeing as many people talk about Solana, but I think that this one has a ton of potential. Take a look at Cardano. You can see Cardano, the same thing, hanging out near the lows. So if Bitcoin can continue to move higher, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if it pulls up some of these other ones. And of course, if you're talking about the cryptos, you can't forget Shibby. And Shibcoin is actually making a pretty decent pattern at the moment, making a very nice bullish triangle, bullish flag, whatever you want to call it. And these typically result in a break to the upside. But let's get into some of the miners now. All right, so let's get into the chart of CleanSpark, but full disclosure, I do own a bunch of shares in CleanSpark, and also I am not a financial advisor. All of this is just my opinion for entertainment purposes only. Please make all of your own trading decisions. That being said, I do have a Patreon group. The link is down there in the description. It's only $9.99 a month. And you get access to our Discord, which I am in every single day. And also, I try to put a pre-market watch list video on the Patreon page before every single trading day in case I see anything significant going on in the market. I didn't get to it today because I had some technical difficulties, but I try to do that every single day. But getting to this CleanSpark chart, in my last video, I talked about this descending wedge that it was in. I thought it was going to have a nice break to the upside like this one. I don't know if it's going to have this big of a move, but definitely the way that the ends of it were really starting to compress, a sharp move to the upside was imminent in my opinion, and we finally got that over this last week or so. But if we zoom in a little bit, you can see it was really starting to get pinched here. I think I did my video when it was right around 750-ish. I added some more shares when it dropped below 7, and actually I added some more shares when it dropped below 6 as well. And yesterday I took advantage of this run up and I started selling some covered calls on my position. It's a great way to earn extra cash if you're not familiar how to do that. It's really easy, and I'm sure there's bunch of tutorial videos on YouTube, but if you're sitting on a decent block of shares, there's no reason to just sit there and wait for it to go where it's going to go. You can sell out of the money calls, and you especially should take advantage of it on big up days, because that's when you get the most. And I sold the $12.50 call and I sold the $20 call, and if I would have waited till today and sold near the highs of today, I would have gotten much more than double what I got yesterday. But I didn't know we were going to have this huge day today. That's just the way it goes. But I collected well over $400 on my shares, so it would have been nice to have collected close to 1,000, but chances are I'm going to keep all of that premium that I collected. And by the way, these options expire next Friday, so I highly doubt it's going to make it all the way till 12/50 next Friday. It might, and if that chunk of shares get called away from me, I'm fine with that because I bought most of those, below $8 a share. So getting getting $12.50 for those shares plus keeping of the premium, it's really not that bad of a haul. But I do think that there's probably no way it's making it all the way up to $20 by next Friday. So I'm definitely going to keep all those shares and keep all that premium. I didn't get a whole heck of a lot, but it was still pretty much free money. But anyway, looking at CleanSpark right here, you can see that it's definitely starting to round up, and it is well above that 8-period exponential moving average. Now it's finding some resistance at that 50-period simple moving average. Did break through it, but now it's selling off on it, and this move is a pretty decent move going up, so you would expect some of a pullback. But looking at this chart, the way that it has broken out of this descending wedge, I think it's probably has made the low at least for quite a while. This usually leads to an extended trend up. It remains to be seen if that happens, but I am pretty optimistic that the low is in, and this thing is probably going to start at least consolidating up around here, if not trending higher. And especially if the price of Bitcoin ends up continuing to go higher, which I think there is a strong possibility of that is going to be nothing but a good thing for CleanSpark and some of the other Bitcoin miners. But let's get into some of the other ones. I want to go into talk about Hut mining first. You can see Hut also was making one of those descending wedge formations, made a little bit of a break lower, but then had a sharp reversal, and you can see Hut has had a nice move up. It's fighting with the 50-period and the 200-period simple moving average, which is what you would expect. And but judging by how these crossovers have happened on the moving averages, I'm guessing that we're probably going to be moving higher from here. So I think Hut mining looks really good. Another one is Marathon Digital Holdings, ticker symbol MARA. You can see this one looks very similar to CleanSpark, so I would expect this one to have also made its bottom, and if it can consolidate and go sideways for a couple of days until that 8-period exponential moving average catches up, I think there's a really nice possibility for a move up to the 200 within a couple of days after that, and that would be a nice sharp move up for Amara. Next one is Riot Blockchain, ticker symbol RIOT. You can see Riot basically doing the same thing as well. These things had a little bit of a fake breakdown out of the wedge, and now they have moved sharply higher. You can see Riot has moved from around 13.25 up to over $20 a share today, just in about a week. So some of these up moves out of these descending wedge formations can be very sharp. Next one I want to talk about is Bitfarms. You can see Bitfarms, actually, this one kind of surprised me with how weak it was, because this one was holding up very well when the Bitcoin miners started to pull back. I thought Bitfarms was going to be one of the stronger ones, but after this little consolidation right here, you can see the breakdown was pretty significant, and Bitfarms is having a hard time getting going right now. It's kind of strange how one looks like it's going to be the strongest, and then just a couple months later it looks like it could be one of the weaker ones in the group. But it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on Bitfarms as well. But if Bitfarms can get over that 50-period simple moving average, I think there's a pretty good possibility this one can start its next wave up as well. All right, so let's get into my trading activity for the day. I only made one trade today, and it was a day trade in IRNT. I had another appointment in the middle of the morning, so I didn't have a whole heck of a lot of time to do any trading. But if we zoom in a little bit, I'll show you how this trade materialized. But you can see that it had a nice little gap up. It's up about 24% at the moment, but it was up a lot more than that. And actually, I bought at $4.34, and I sold at $4.49, which was right at the 50-period simple moving average. Normally, when a stock hits that, it pulls back, but IRNT just kept going. So in hindsight, I should have held on to it. But the time that I hold on to it is probably the time that it does hit that like a brick wall and reverse. But anyway, it was a halfway decent trade. Let's go to the minute chart, and I'll show you how this one played out. Let me zoom back out of here and situate the chart a little bit better so we can see it better. You can see IRNT had a nice gap up, moved up for about a bar, and then started to roll over. You can see it was starting to make a nice little rounding bottom. So what I do is try to make a ceiling the best that I can. Right about here is where I put it, and I put in my buy order at 434, so it stopped me in right here, and it stopped me out, or I should say I took profit like pretty much a minute later at 449. But you can see it you know, kind of moved sideways till that white line, that 8-period exponential moving average, caught up to it and had one more sharp move up before we had the rollover. So if I you know, would have held on to it a little bit longer, I could have had a lot more of a gain. But if we go back to what's happened during the rest of the day, you can see it has kind of been selling off ever since. But decent trade, made about 3.5% on it, and you know, it's not bad for 1 minute of work. So that was my trading activity for the day. If you guys have any questions on any of these, don't hesitate to leave it down there in the comment section. I will get back to you as soon as I can. But I'm going to end it right there. Thank you so much for watching my video all the way to the end. And until next time, take care, everybody.